going on, guys? So we're going to get into things pretty quickly, and we are talking about some mental mistakes today that are keeping you stuck. Now, this is important too because this is one thing that I see a lot with athletes, right? They train hard, they put the time in, they're putting the work in the gym, but they're forgetting about this whole other area of the game that's also massively, massively important. So we're talking about some mental mistakes you're making, 3 mental mistakes in particular that are keeping you stuck where you're at in your career. And we're going to get going really quickly. So we're going to go right away. We're going to go in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the #1 show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I am your host, Kenny Dussault, and today we are talking about the mental mistakes that are keeping you stuck. Now, we're talking about this one today because, plain and simple, a lot of athletes overlook the fact that training is one area of being successful as an athlete. One. And they put all their time into this training, which, don't get me wrong, is a massively important area, obviously, but they neglect some other very, very important areas. So today we are going to go through some of the mental things that you guys deal with that can right now be keeping you stuck where you're at in your career and have you not seeing the success that you are trying to see in your athletic career. So let's get into it. #1 is allowing your ego to take over in training. Now, this is a really difficult thing that I see a lot of athletes deal with, and something that, again, I understand why athletes deal with this, because plain and simple, when you've got training partners that are at the gym and, they're talking about like they're going this extra mile, they're doing this extra work, they're doing all of these other crazy things that you aren't necessarily doing, then it's easy to get caught up in the idea of like, oh, I can't let them outwork me, so I need to go do those things too, and I need to go do more too, and I need to level my game up too. Now, don't get me wrong, hard work, very important part of training. Never going to say otherwise. But you've got to understand that just because these other people are doing more or doing extra or doing these other things, it doesn't mean that you need to be doing it too, first off. It doesn't mean you need to be doing it too. But second, depending on what they're doing, it could actually be causing more problems. It could actually be taking away from their ability to succeed in their sport, not actually helping them. And this is something that I think a lot of us overlook or a lot of us forget. Just because someone's doing something, it doesn't mean it's helping, right? I'll see this kind of thing all the time. Athletes will come to me. They'll be like, oh, but like my teammate says, he's doing this, this, or that. I'm like, cool, why? And then they can't explain it. So if they have no reason behind this extra thing that they're doing, why do you need to be doing it too? Right? Especially if you're seeing improvements. Now, the important thing that I want to get into with this as well is that it doesn't mean you can't add in any extra or you can't make changes, but you've got to remember the point of the training that you're doing. And the point of the training that you're doing is to succeed when you actually compete. So if you're continuing to make progress on your weaknesses and you're continuing to reinforce your strengths and you're continuing to improve in all the areas you need to improve to see success in your sport, why do you need to make these drastic changes? Trust the process. Continue to work based off of the things that you're doing at the moment. Continue to improve based off of the improvements that you're already making. And by doing that, you're going to continue to see success. But if you're already seeing success, and then another teammate of yours, I was about to say client, that's not for you. Another teammate of yours comes in and they have this drastic different thing that they're doing. Why would you go do that when you're already seeing the results you want doing the thing you're doing now? And the other side of that is when it comes to things like sparring or when it comes to, the skills training side of things. Yes, you want to continue to push yourself. Yes, you want to work hard. That is obviously a huge part of seeing success at anything. But a huge key that I think a lot of you guys make mistakes with is just continuing to think that more equals better, right? If your teammate spars 6 rounds, you want to spar 8 just to show that no one in the gym is willing to work harder than you. But if you go spar those extra 2 rounds when your body's beat up, you're sore, you're tired, that shoulder injury that you have kind of is tweaking a little bit, you go spar those extra couple rounds and then you get injured in the middle of those rounds, Sure, you might have done more rounds and made the ego feel good, but you're taking away from the ultimate goal of training, which is to succeed when you compete. You know what I'm saying? Mental mistake number 2. Spending all your time wondering versus spending all your time actually making the decision to change. So this is a question that I get a lot on these lives. This is a question that I get a lot in my DMs. I also have this is a question I've gotten a lot. And that's something along the lines of like, hey, I'm this age. Is it too late for me to, turn pro as an athlete? And whatever the answer to that question is, like whatever age you are, no, it's not too late. I mean, yeah, obviously there's the extreme. If you're in your 60s, you're probably not going to make a good career as a pro MMA fighter or something like that. But the answer is no. 99% of the time. Alexander Volkanovski started MMA at 24 years old, and he is one of the greatest fighters of all time, right? Daniel Cormier, I know, was an extremely high-level wrestler, but had his first MMA fight, I think he was 30. So if you have a good background in martial arts, you got time. You can do it. But the mistake a lot of people make is they spend all this time going back and forth, wondering, oh, is it too late? Wondering, oh, should I try? Should I go for it? Am I going to be able to go for it? And all that time that you haven't just made the decision that I'm going to do everything that I can to achieve the level of success that I'm going to be able to is just time that's being wasted. Time that's, not actually progressing you forward towards the goals that you say are important to you. So whatever position you're in, whatever age you are, whatever level you're at, if you want to see success in the sport that you've chosen, stop asking for permission to try to see success in the sport that you've chosen. Just go fucking choose and go do it. And when I say go do it, what I mean is think about the characteristics that come with being a high-level athlete in the sport that you've chosen. The discipline that it takes when you talk about training, when you talk about nutrition, the discipline it takes to stick to a proper plan and see the progress you're making, the extra time spent on doing mobility work and all that extra important stuff outside the gym. All of those little pieces of the puzzle that you can focus on, make the decision now, go do it, and then see how far you can get. But if you spend the next year wondering whether or not it makes sense for you to maybe decide to go give this thing a shot, then that's just one more year that you haven't actually put towards actually giving it a shot, right? So stop wondering what if, stop wondering can I, and just make the decision to actually go all in and actually give it everything you've got. And that brings me to number 3. And number 3 is honestly probably the best change that I've made in my own life when it comes to building the business, when it comes to my own training and everything else I'm doing. Number 3 is you're using the words I can't. And this comes in so many different places, but this was a super powerful thing that I had a mentor teach me a few years ago. Every time you say I can't, you're immediately absolving yourself of responsibility, right? And that's something that I hear a lot in conversations with athletes of, I can't afford strength and conditioning. You want to be a high-level professional athlete at the top level, competing with the best people in the world, but you can't afford a coach that's going to help you be able to build up your gas tank and be able to do that at the highest pace you can every time you compete. And immediately you just absolve yourself of that responsibility. Oh, I can't because I can't afford it. And I understand right now you might not be able to. You literally might not have the money in the bank at this moment to be able to make that purchase, that investment. And whether that's the strength and conditioning, obviously I go back to that example because that's what I do for a living. Or whether that's the weight cutting specialist, the nutritionist, whether that's the physical therapy you need to heal those injuries, like take that same concept and apply it to wherever it makes sense. And understand that every time you say I can't, you're absolving yourself of the responsibility, but your sport doesn't care. If you call up the UFC and you're like, hey, I lost a bunch of fights because I didn't have a strength and conditioning coach, but I couldn't afford it. They're not going to be like, oh, okay, well, come have a contract anyway. It's okay. I get it. Life's tough. That's not going to happen. But then the same deal with the weight cuts. Oh, I'm losing fights because I'm having these bad weight cuts. And then now that's affecting how I'm performing. Oh, but I can't afford somebody that's actually going to help me make those improvements with it. No one cares. You still need to find a way. But when you absolve yourself of the responsibility, immediately you basically just say, well, it's fine. It's not my fault. I can't afford it. And this comes out in so many different areas. I can't train X amount of days per week because I'm too busy. Whereas then there are other athletes that say, oh, my schedule is really busy. So instead of training at this time, I'm going to find a way. I'm going to move this commitment that I have over here. And then I'm going to get to training over here so that I can fit all my sessions in through the day. Right? It all comes down to how much you actually want it. It all comes down to what you're willing to sacrifice and what you're willing to change in order to get it. So with the example of I can't afford it, whether that's coming down to, again, any of those different examples I gave, simply by changing your language to how can I afford it? Because you know that that thing or that investment or that person is going to be extremely beneficial to you. And I see comments coming in, this guy's just trying to sell his course. And again, I understand why you think it's coming across that way. But when it comes across like that, think about it. Is having a better gas tank, being stronger, being more explosive, being faster going to benefit your sport? Probably, right? So why would you not want to make an investment in that? Just like having a weight cutting specialist is going to benefit you in your fights if you're a fighter. Just like having proper physiotherapy or proper athletic therapy to work through those injuries that you've got is going to benefit your body physically, right? So yes, you can look at it as, oh, he's just trying to sell his course. Trust me, I'm doing just fine without you. But these investments are going to be important for you. And by switching your mindset from I can't to how can I, now you're going to be able to make more investment in yourself, which is going to benefit your future. And the example I'm going to give you guys is back to my own life building this business that I'm running now. When I first ran into my business coaches online, the first thing I told them when they went through their programs, how everything worked and all of that, the first thing I told them was, I don't have any money. I can't afford it. And they just left it at that. They were like, well, that's fine. You can't afford it. But, when you're ready to make X, Y, Z change and see these benefits in your business, you come back, you let us know. And then I looked at my account and I was like, okay, can I afford this? And I figured out that it was going to take most of the money I had in the bank. I was like, let's say, okay, worst case scenario, I put this money towards this thing and I don't see the success I'm looking for. Well, it's not going to kill me. Like, yeah, it's going to hurt, but it's not going to kill me. So best case scenario, I put the money in. It actually works the way they're saying it's going to work. I see all of these benefits. What's my life going to look like in a year, 2 years, 5 years? So I made the decision to take a shot because I realized that as much as it was tight and I didn't want to invest that money necessarily, if it worked, it was going to be a massive benefit to my life and my career. We have 10x the size of the business in the last 2 years since hiring those coaches. My social media platform has gone from 300 followers to 58,000 followers. Leads are flowing in the door every day. The business is growing every day. The delivery of the programs that we actually offer have improved drastically because I'm able to go and travel and learn from more mentors and develop more as a coach because I made that investment. You guys get what I'm saying? It's a difficult thing to do, but when I actually just switched I can't to how can I do this, I was able to make an investment that's drastically changed the course of my business and my life. But it's just by switching the mindset, and it's just by making the decision that I'm actually willing to do whatever it takes to build the career that I want to build. I could have been like that guy in the comments and just said, well, this guy's just trying to sell me some shit. And thank God he did, because the program that I got into, the business coaching program I got into, was fucking incredible. So yeah, was he selling me some shit? 100%. But the shit he sold me worked, and it drastically changed my life for the better. So why is that a bad thing? Why is that a bad thing? Why do we not want to be sold things that are going to benefit us drastically? And yeah, I went off on a little bit of a tangent there because I think that's an important one to talk about. But the main idea from this, guys, is these are 3 mental mistakes keeping you stuck. Number 1 is letting your ego take over in training. Putting yourself in a position where you're always just trying to do the most, even though even though it's not necessarily going to benefit you. Number two is wondering if you can make it versus just making the decision and giving it everything you have. And then number three is the language of I can't, telling yourself you can't do things versus actually figuring out how can you do things in order to see the success you're looking for. So guys, I appreciate you all for tuning in. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will catch you on the next episode.